Hi, are you a fan of 50s fashion? If so, do you know if you are a Sandy or a Rizzo from Greece? Find out today in this video where I'll compare the two characters and what they might have worn so that you can find out if you're a Sandy or a Rizzo. For the best advice on vintage style, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you'll always know when my new videos come out. I'm Ren. My company's name is Spirits of Fashion, which was developed so that I could conduct fashion era presentations to all kinds of groups. I've been collecting vintage clothing for over 30 years, and I've been teaching about historic fashion for about 15 years now. I love sharing my passion with others. First of all, if you've never seen Grease, it was a movie that was made in 1978 about high school kids in 1958. And they, of course, were sporting the styles of that era, but the characters of Sandy and Rizzo were dressed quite differently. Sandy was a new girl in town. She was very conservative, where Rizzo had been around for a while and was a little bit more streetwise and a little, rougher around the edges. So you'll see the difference in the clothing there. Although there were different silhouettes in the 1950s, especially the late 50s when there were more options, there were trapeze styles coming out and heading us into the 1960s. But in this movie, we really see that flavor of the 50s. Sandy would be seen more in the full skirted look with more conservative blouse with a Peter Pan collar. And Rizzo would be toughened up a little bit as the bad girl in a tighter pencil skirt or perhaps some pedal pushers, which she would wear maybe with a small heel as opposed to the saddle shoes that you'll see Sandy in quite often. I pulled some pieces both from my regular collection of clothing and my vintage collection, and I didn't have exactly what I needed for each character, so I had to sort of improvise, so forgive me for that. What I'll tell you about though right now is what I didn't have in the videos I took of myself in the clothing. What I didn't have on was this sweater. This is a 1950s sweater with this beautiful embroidery of flowers and leaves and little rhinestones in the center, and it's being held on the shoulders with what they call a sweater guard, which was just a clip that would clip onto each side and hold it in place so that they didn't have to put the sleeves through if they didn't want to. And this is what the sweater looks like. So this would have been typical for this time period, and I believe there's at least one scene of Sandy wearing a similar style in the movie. When you look at images of adult fashion in the 1950s, it's different than what the high schoolers would have worn. The high schoolers were now the new term that was coined called teenagers, and they wanted their own style of dress. They did not want to look like their parents. Prior to this period, most younger people were miniature or smaller versions of their parents because they did dress in a similar way. But after World War II, young people, like teenagers, started to have jobs, and so they had their own spending money. And they wanted to go out and have their own style and express themselves differently than did their parents. I'd love to know which of the silhouettes you prefer from the 1950s, and if you've ever tried this style. Let me know in the comments below. Next, I'm going to show you the two outfits that I picked out, one for Sandy and one for Rizzo, so that you can see the main differences in their styles of the time. For Sandy's look, I'm wearing original 1950s pieces, the skirt, the blouse, and a petticoat, but I'm wearing more modern shoes that look like saddle shoes of the 50s. For Rizzo's look, I'm wearing a 50s style modern blouse, modern shorts that are not quite pedal pushers, but they are close enough, shoes that I thrifted, and an actual chiffon scarf that is vintage. Now that you've seen the two different looks, see what resonates with you. What would you see yourself wearing if you were back in that time? And how would you modernize it today? What would you do differently to give a hint of 1950s without looking too costumey? So let me know in the comments below what you would decide to do for your own unique 1950s look. If you'd like more vintage style ideas, go to my website and sign up for my newsletter that comes out monthly with lots of information and, again, more style tips on how to mix vintage with modern fashion. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up And be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll know when my new videos come out every week. You can also follow me on Spirits of Fashion Facebook and Instagram, and I've linked those below as well. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!